And we are back with more on News Talk Saga 960. So very glad you could join us on this edition of the Mark Petrona Show. Well, I mean, if you've been keeping half an eye on the stock markets, well, you know what's been happening lately is that we're kind of in either a major correction or maybe even a bear market, kind of depending on who you're speaking with. And interestingly enough, Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies have been falling as well. Now, gold has been kind of holding steady. It was down a little bit last week. So if people are looking for some kind of safe haven, they might look at precious metals. Other people might see this as a buying opportunity, not only from stocks. You look at the tech stocks, man, they are getting shredded. You look at stocks like Amazon and Netflix, of course, getting cut in at least almost a half if you go back far enough. What about Bitcoin? What's going on there? Well, it's down a lot. In fact, it's had about $200 billion in its capitalization shaved off in the last little while. And some people are wondering, well, how low could she go? Well, the guy to talk to, of course, is Benjamin Dichter, who's our go-to guy, because he's gonna pick the bottom. He's gonna call the bottom right here on Saga 960. They said it couldn't be done.
I'm finally getting sucked into talking about price, aren't I?
Well, a lot of people are talking about it. And look, I, for one, have given up thinking about the price of Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Of course, last time we spoke, we talked about, the meeting at Berkshire Hathaway with Charlie Munger, of course, and Warren Buffett blasting Bitcoin, saying, if you were to give it to me for $25, all of the Bitcoin in the world, I wouldn't take it. I wouldn't bother with it. People thought that was outrageous, but I guess the point that they're trying to make is it's worthless anyway. But it did have a substantial amount of value shaved over the last couple of weeks. Now its peak was at around $69,000 US, and people thought, okay, it's headed for $100,000 a coin, and nothing's going to stop it. Well, it hit a wall, and it's down to the mid 30s right now. Should people be concerned, Benjamin?
I don't know. Why don't we ask Statler and Waldorf what they think? Because they wouldn't buy trillions of dollars with a mere $25, right? I mean, look, the global market, the global economy is in collapse. It's needed to do this for quite some time because everything is so heavily leveraged and inflated. We've seen a lot of investment banks getting into the Bitcoin space, so I'm not surprised that maybe some of them are withdrawing some of their Bitcoin to cover some of their losses in other areas like Netflix. I don't know, was Netflix down 50%, 70%, something like that? But you know what they say, if you loved Bitcoin at $66,000, you're going to love it at $35,000 because now's the time to accumulate. And it's funny, whenever you get to those new all-time highs, everybody jumps to that emotional state of, I wish I had more. I should have bought more when it was cheaper. Okay, well, now here's your opportunity. And some people are like, oh, no, it's going down. Well, this is why we can't trade or we can't buy assets based on emotion. And this is why I tell everybody just a dollar cost average. If you do and you ignore the price, you're buying your freedom, then over time it's going to work out to your favor.
Yeah, well, here's the headline in Forbes, which I don't think is a huge fan of cryptocurrencies at all.
I'm not a huge fan of Forbes, so perfect.
Extreme fear. Crypto crash suddenly wipes 200 billion off the price of Bitcoin, Ethereum, BNB, which is a new one on me. To me, it's like bed and breakfast. That's what I think of with BNB.
The Binance token.
XRP, which I have heard of that one. Luna, okay. Solana, Cardano, I've heard of that one. And Avalanche. Okay, so all of them are getting shredded. And I don't know. I guess some people are going to think either it's a buying opportunity or maybe getting out opportunity. It's like head for the hills here. But it is interesting that no matter where you've got your money parked, including, by the way, cash. I mean, if you're looking at, I'm gonna sit in the sidelines with a little bit of money, with a little bit of cash that I have, or maybe more than a little bit. But guess what? Inflation is destroying the value of regular currencies. So, compare it apples to apples here. I mean, when you look at the falling value of just fiat currencies like the loonie, like the dollar, although people are going to say, well, the US greenback is making a comeback. Well, that's funny because everything is costing more. So relative to what? I mean, if you're looking for any kind of, I suppose, safe haven, you might look at oil, places like that. But do you take any solace in the fact that everything seems to be down?
Yeah, I mean, for me, again, I don't really focus on the price for such a short time frame. I look over periods of years, and if you go back to 2015, I think I sent you the chart earlier. Bitcoin is up how many thousands of percent since then? So I think people, if they get into this frame where they start to adjust their time horizon and think of it as more of a long-term asset that they're buying, that they're going to utilize in the future, then these corrections are just buying opportunities for most people. Now, this is a good time for me also to weigh in on the other clown coins, we'll call them. And I say that, I don't mean it to be so harsh, but there's a very big difference between what Bitcoin is and what all these centralized blockchains are. And the worst of all the clown coins in the world is the US dollar or the Canadian dollar or any centralized currency coming out of one of those central banks.
Okay, so I understand you're not a fan of the fiat currencies. You can print, they keep printing more and more of them. They're backed not by gold, but just I guess the faith that people have in them.
And the faith that the government won't lock you out of your bank accounts or all of your assets. Yeah, the faith.
Well, for what it's worth. But that faith seems to be eroded, and that's really what inflation is, right? Inflation essentially is a lack of faith. But it's interesting how certain pundits over at the Globe and Mail are coming to the defense of the Bank of Canada, suggesting, well, now's not the time to criticize and to undermine the faith of Tiff Macklem, the governor of the Bank of Canada, because they're going to have to raise rates at some point. I mean, if there ever was a time when you have to look twice at what the Bank of Canada has done vis-a-vis rates, the rate of interest rate increases, well, now's the time because, of course, we've got inflation. Their job is to keep an eye on inflation. And he basically has one job, and to make sure that the value of money is stable and continues to have value, and there's confidence in the market, confidence in the loonie. Well, all of that is being undermined, and we're seeing that manifesting in inflation. And so our money is buying less and less. So that's why when I look at this situation, I would think, well, isn't that an opportunity for Bitcoin? Isn't that an opportunity perhaps to move into other cryptocurrencies? And I think maybe those who are coming to the defense of the governor of the Bank of Canada, coming to the defense of fiat currencies, are worried that people are going to be thinking, well, my cash isn't buying much anymore. So maybe I need to look at other, ways of buying stuff. Maybe Bitcoin is one of those ways. The problem is, of course, now the defenders of fiat currencies, they're going to say, well, look, Bitcoin's down too. So, forget about that. It's almost like, what happened here? Is it possible that there's been manipulation in the price of Bitcoin? I'm going to run this past you because people have been talking about the manipulation of gold and the price of other precious metals for decades now, worried that somehow the price of gold has been artificially hammered in order to protect the value of fiat currencies. Is it possible? I mean, are people right to be concerned that maybe there's some manipulation in the price of Bitcoin?
The difference with Bitcoin and the legacy financial system is the legacy financial system is opaque. We can't see when investment banks are taking large gambles on huge amounts of money, which is on leverage, which is on margin, that they're trying to manipulate the market price. With Bitcoin, because it is a public ledger that everybody can see, we can all verify the amount of Bitcoin that's there. So it's not really the same thing. It's because you don't have the opaqueness. I hear these things all the time that, the whales are selling because they want to buy more. Now, maybe that's true. I think that's ridiculous because I've never heard of a person buying an asset and wanting it to go down. Like, I think that's a conspiracy theory type thing. Oh, we're going to drive it down and buy more. Like, no, you just want it to go up. That's it. You just want it to go up. So I personally don't buy it because I don't see any evidence of it. Now, I might be wrong, right? Perhaps there are people who say, well, we can show you these transactions and we can show you the exact reason for the motivation that people are buying or selling large amounts of Bitcoins, and specifically for this purpose. But until somebody comes out and says, yes, I'm the one who's selling hundreds of millions of Bitcoin at a time to artificially drive down the price so I can buy up more. Until that happens, I don't buy it. I don't buy that. I don't buy the fact that people try to buy assets and then try to intentionally sabotage the price of their assets to buy more. Now, in the legacy system, because it's so opaque, because it's not verifiable, I think that becomes a little bit more plausible, especially since in the legacy financial system, they are privatizing their profits and they're socializing their losses. So there's really no consequence to them. So in that case, yeah, maybe they are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, people are going to be wondering about this, and I'm wondering as well as whether or not this is actually kind of a good thing if you're a long-term investor of Bitcoin. And let me run this past you.
Yeah.
You're going to have your speculators. You're going to have people who are going in and out of the Bitcoin market trying to make a buck,
sure.
right?
Yeah,
Just like you do in equity markets.
For sure. Traders, for sure.
So
yeah,
maybe is this maybe a one way? I mean, I don't know. Do people short Bitcoin? I get that people short Bitcoin, but I guess the question I would have is this a good way maybe to weed out some of the extreme speculators and get them out? Because what you want, I suppose, if you're looking for stability, long-term stability in Bitcoin, maybe you want people who are in it not as a fly-by-night kind of buy it, hold it for 10 minutes, dump it, but people who are actually trying to understand that this is a long-term play and a move forward in terms of the way that the business is going to be done using Bitcoin going forward. Does that question make sense?
Yeah, well, something that happens a little differently in Bitcoin than the legacy financial markets is, and I hope I don't explain this incorrectly. If I do, well, then shoot me. What can I tell you? You can get margin on exchanges for Bitcoin, and you can get stupidly excessive amounts of margin. On some exchanges, you can borrow up to 120x your investment, 120 times your investment. So we do see this happen from time to time, especially when the markets become volatile. All global markets become volatile, as we saw in the beginning of COVID. You saw a lot of people who had 80x margin, 50x margin, 100x margin. All of a sudden, they get liquidated because the margin call process doesn't work the same way. It's automated. And so when you can have a relationship in the legacy financial system, you can buy on margin, and then, they may give you more. Time will go on, a month. You'll communicate with them. They'll be aware of your trades, and they may get to a point where they say, okay, they'll just execute a margin call. With Bitcoin, it's not like that. When you go on an exchange, and if you do put 120x margin on a trade, if it goes down by 2%, you're liquidated automatically. So it operates completely differently. And that's why you see a lot of this, because you see a lot of people who are heavily margined. They'll put on 120x, it'll go down 5%, which is not uncommon for Bitcoin, as you know, and they just get automatically liquidated. And they do that to protect the market, just to protect everybody else, to prevent the entire thing from imploding. And by the way, it's not government policy that's led to that. That's actually policy from the free market that's come up with that stopgap to prevent the market from collapsing.
Benjamin Dichter joining us on Saga 960, our go-to guy on all things Bitcoin related and cryptocurrency related, although he will be the first to tell you that Bitcoin really is the main player and should be the main player going forward in terms of cryptocurrencies. I mean, I know you've got some thoughts about Ethereum, which is, I guess, the second player. But I want to ask you about this first. You go on Craigslist. This is if you're looking to buy and sell stuff. and this is what they're selling. Somebody is selling a Inno silicon
Hmm.
T3 57 Bitcoin miner for a couple of $1,000. Okay, this is in St. Petersburg, Florida. An ASIC Bitcoin miner bought from a manufacturer end of last year. Never used. Wow. So this is one of those only driven by an elderly person kind of deal. In this
Yeah.
case, never driven.
Uh-huh.
I was supposed to move somewhere that had 220Y plug and ended up not moving there. So here's a guy makes over $8,000 a year. Okay, how valid is that? Is that a red flag for you if somebody says it makes $8,000 a year in cryptocurrency? Are you buying that?
Yeah, well, I don't know what kind of ASCII ASIC miner that is. It looks quite old. It's not an S19 or one of the newer machines. So I don't know what I'm looking at. It looks like somebody went on the Red Green show and took
Uh,
some duct tape and glue and built what they call an ASIC miner. But I'm not an expert on mining. I could be wrong. It's an older machine, obviously, being a T3. But it depends on, it's not about how much money it makes. It's how many satoshis can it earn based on the hash power, and then what's the value of the satoshis. And as we know, because the market is volatile, yeah, I guess depends on market changes. I guess you can. I wouldn't make that claim. I think the way they're trying to list it is dishonest, and that's for people who are new to Bitcoin. But you mentioned Ethereum, the World Economic Forum clown coin, their clown coin of choice. That miner that you just showed is the reason Bitcoin is different than all the other cryptocurrencies, and why I focus on when I try to bring new people into this space just to focus on Bitcoin, because those machines are what verify the blockchain, because it is proof of work. And we won't get into the details, but basically there's machines like that, tens, hundreds of thousands of them, that verify the blockchain. Ethereum is apparently a proof of stake system, but it still uses proof of work. So Ethereum is a hot mess right now. It's what's supposed to be proof of stake, which don't worry about that just means it doesn't use those ASCII miners to secure it. It's more like our financial system, where the people who have the larger amount of coins, the wealthier people in the space, they dictate what happens on in the Ethereum space, which is why it is not Bitcoin. Does that make sense?
yeah. I don't trust the World Economic Forum, and so
Smart man.
the fact that they would then come out and say, "Yeah, we back Ethereum over Bitcoin," suggests to me that that's a great reason not to go with Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like, do you really want to go there? And I would suggest that the answer is positively no.
Are you
Interesting.
suggesting the world's not going to be saved by another left-wing German? I mean, what could go
uh,
wrong?
well, Klaus, no, I don't trust him, but I think Steve Del Duca is his mini me. Klaus Schwab is mini me. I don't know. There's something seems to be close there, maybe in terms of their philosophies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how many Bitcoin are there left to mine right now?
Just under 2 million, right? We hit 2 million in
Okay,
May of this
yeah.
year. Sorry, we hit 19 million in May of this year. So over the next 120 years, more or less, that's the amount of Bitcoin that's going to be available. And we're halfway to the next halving. So in 2 years from now, the daily supply, the verifiable daily supply of Bitcoin is going to be cut from 900 coins to 450 coins. Well, what do you think that's going to do to the price?
And here's the World Economic Forum posting a video. Speaking of them, experts have found a way to cut Bitcoin's carbon footprint by 99.9%. Dare we listen to a little bit? Let's listen to a little bit.
Oh, kill
I,
me.
but I'm actually hoping that Klaus Schwab is narrating, is doing the voiceover for this, but I don't think that's the case. Let's see. They say a change in the way of Bitcoin. Okay, it's moving way too fast for me to read. Okay, so let's go back here. It says they say a change in the way Bitcoin is coded could virtually eliminate its environmental impact. Is that a good thing? The world's most popular cryptocurrency uses more electricity than Denmark. Oh my gosh. So Bitcoin's huge energy demands stem from the way its transitions are verified. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I think what we're looking at is the plot to the next Austin Powers movie. Right? Dr. Evil's going to come and save the world through some cryptocurrency that's environmentally friendly, and some nuclear weapon is going to wipe us all out, whatever it's going to be.
Right.
It's donkey science, like it's absolute nonsense. And yet again, anything the World Economic Forum does, we should all want the opposite, no matter what it is. That's just a blanket statement. You know what? Maybe once in a while they'll get it right, but I'm willing to bet 95% of the time that's going to be a solid solution. And when they talk about, the environmental impact of Bitcoin, they never talk about the environmental impact of the legacy financial system. With all those skyscrapers around the world, all these banks that we have, the branches, the computer systems, all the people employed by them who transport to work. None of that. This is just a bunch of computers, right? This somehow, people have bought into this fake narrative that somehow a bunch of computers is more environmental impact than thousands of skyscrapers around the world.
Meantime, you'll be able to use Bitcoin to buy Gucci stuff. I'm sure you're a big fan. But here's a story.
I got all my Gucci stuff back here, Mark.
Here's a story in, I believe it's CNN, saying that you will soon now use Bitcoin to buy Gucci.
Mark, hold on. First it was the Globe and Snell. Now it's CNN. We're going from fake news to degenerate news.
To faker news. From fake news to faker news. Yeah. Well, but I would think that would be a story that you would probably think has some validity. That's a major company, a fashion giant, that's saying, yeah, all right, we're in. I mean, if you want to buy the latest Gucci fashions, we'll take your crypto, we'll take your Bitcoin. I mean, to me, that's actually a pretty good sign, because once these major players, fashion players, I mean, those are the harbingers of what's ahead, right? I mean, that's what's up ahead. That's what's trendy. And so, I mean, I don't know if Gucci is still trendy or not, but I would suggest that it probably is. And then, so people are thinking, yeah, I mean, if you can buy Gucci stuff, then, how much longer before you can buy, I don't know, anything, a bunch of other stuff.
I think also what you see with those premium brands, they won't be the first. It's because their customer base tends to be rather young. That's where you get the 18 to 35 or 18 to 24-year-old demographic, because everybody else has a mortgage and is not wasting their money on Gucci. And they have the wisdom to understand that cryptocurrency, Bitcoin and digital currency, we'll put it that way, are appealing to younger people. And that is their way of capturing a younger demographic. And it's a brilliant retail strategy as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, here it is. Luxury brand Gucci has announced that it will accept cryptocurrency payments at select locations. For the pilot project, customers will be able to pay with cryptocurrency at locations in New York, Los Angeles, Miami, Atlanta, and Las Vegas, starting at the end of May. This summer, the program will be expanded to Gucci's full North American network, BJ. So this is big. According to a press release issued or shared with CNN, customers will soon be able to pay for their purchases with over 10 cryptocurrencies, including widely recognized coins like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a bunch of the other ones, the pegged stable coins, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so Dogecoin. Okay, let's see. Also accepting niche cryptocurrencies like Dogecoin.
Mark's trying to confuse his audience now.
I'm confused. So
exactly.
I mean, is that a good thing? I mean, should Gucci be doing this? I mean, if you were advising Gucci, would you say, look, you don't want to start accepting these, these bogus coins? I mean, you got stick with Bitcoin. Would you say that to them if they had they were taking your advice?
The reason they're going to do it is because they want to receive whatever clown coin is paid in, and they're just going to convert it immediately into Bitcoin. One of the things that has made Michael Saylor so popular on the world stage and in the Bitcoin community is he really was the first one to talk to other companies and explain the mechanisms and the process of moving your balance sheet into Bitcoin, or part of your balance sheet into Bitcoin. Well, this is a very effective way for a retailer, and we know retail is struggling right now, for them to get Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Is let's just sell our stuff in whatever clown coin people want to use, and Bitcoin doesn't really matter. We'll get it in and we'll convert it into Bitcoin, and then we'll hold it in reserves, because we know this asset tends to increase in its value. I think the average is 180 or 200% per year. So why wouldn't we do that with a percentage of our portfolio? And they know it's not going to be the vast majority of their clients that'll do it, because it's a new market, but it's a small percentage. But it's that small percentage of younger people, which is what every retailer wants to appeal to. So I think it's brilliant on their point.
Meantime, we're expecting an executive order from Biden, Joe Biden, the president, fake president or otherwise, of the United States. By signing an executive order on cryptocurrencies, President Biden has signaled an openness to the technology's potentially positive impacts. This is a significant and encouraging development for an asset class, digital assets, that currently surpassed $3 trillion in market capitalization. I don't know. I tend not to trust government. And so when they start issuing orders like this, executive orders related to stuff like cryptocurrencies, it makes me wonder if they're really trying to wreck it. I don't know. Are you suspicious here?
No, you know what they say in politics, follow the money? Well, they think everything follow the money, right? Biden's number 2 largest donor through his 2020 campaign, I can't remember the guy's name, but he is the CEO and founder of FTX, the exchange that bought the arena in Miami. That is Biden's number 2 sugar daddy. So that money wasn't invested with Biden to get unfriendly regulations towards Bitcoin. So I think that's probably accurate.
Reasons for guarded optimism, according to the story in Bitcoin magazine. For quite some time, the government's view on Bitcoin focused on illicit activities such as ransomware, sanction avoidance, and terrorist financing. While the EO suggests that the government is now also considering the technology's potentially positive impact, it still explicitly cites consumer protection and illicit finance as top priorities. In this regard, several points are worth noting. So I guess they're being guardedly optimistic here that the government weighing into this, including the future of payments and money, while they say it's consumer based, in actual fact, it may be the harbinger of more and more acceptance on the part of the government that this is the way of the future. Although, as you and I have spoken about in the past, eventually they want to go into CBDC, into government issued digital currencies, which is very, very different from Bitcoin.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to. I mentioned that at the Bitcoin conference, which, by the way, was held by Bitcoin Magazine. So if you're looking for a reliable source that is objective in the Bitcoin space, I highly recommend Bitcoin Magazine. They're quite good. There's a bunch of others, but they're good as well. But as I mentioned in during the conference, I think one of the interviews, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think we're going to see CBDCs, at least in the United States, like people think they are. And for one reason, the United States couldn't even get rid of the penny. They still have the penny there. Like, they do not like changing their money. And I cannot see a world where there's not a full-out civil war if they try to implement a CBDC, especially, throughout the Midwest and the South and whatever. Like, think about it. They won't get rid of the penny, man. They wouldn't. Remember, they were also going to do coinization for the dollar bill, and they almost broke out into civil war at that as well. CBDCs are not happening in the United States without a massive fight. Other countries like Canada, I would be a little bit more concerned because people are a lot more passive, although we're starting to see signs, the winds of change, like we saw with the Freedom Convoy, and then we saw the veterans come to Ottawa recently, and from what I understand, there's going to be more protests going on throughout the summer.
Okay.
But I don't think we're going to see that in the U.S. at all. And I think Jerome Powell knows that.
I know you wanted to say something about Jean Charest, who's running for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. Let's listen to what he has to say when he was asked about Huawei. This is what he doesn't want to talk about.
Allez-y, Marie.
Hi there. Kian Bexley here with the countersignal.com. I'm just going to ask you what Pierre was asking you in the debate. I actually was at your launch in Calgary. I asked you why you worked for Huawei, and you said that it was because you wanted to free the two Michaels. Took that at face value, but Canadians are curious, how much money did you take from Huawei? There was it six figures?
I'm not going to go into that. I mean, that's
no. I'm not going to tell you. Then you.
All the work I did in my lifetime, I never did anything.
He's such a
contrary to the.
As the British would say, I'm a corrupt twat. I'm not going to answer your question. I'm just going to do whatever I want.
It was a long time ago. We're talking whatever. 2, 3, it wasn't that.
Oh yeah,
long.
2-3 years ago. Listen, a little background on Huawei, because I know a lot of people in that community, the Chinese community. Huawei was founded by a general in the military who knows nothing about computers. Okay, that's what Huawei is. That's what it's been from day one. The fact that that piece of garbage is even permitted to run, and he was a liberal premier, and no one in that Conservative Party. I'm not talking about the people running for office. I'm talking about the garbage behind the scene that actually run the party. Not one of them have a spine to say, hey, the guy affiliated with the CCP, he's not going to run for the Conservative. Hey, Patrick Brown, who got into trouble with this ballot stuffing when he was head of the Ontario PC party, we're not going to allow him to run because we have some moral code. A little bit. It's so frustrating that guy is even on stage. It infuriates me, but that's just me.
Well, he was prevented from running in the last leadership race. You remember the talk about that, and I think Harper stepped in. This time, that didn't happen, and he's running, and who knows? He may be running second, and I don't think he's going to win, but weird things have happened. I didn't think O'Toole was going to win either, so...
Well, I think Pierre destroyed him.
Yeah.
And I see all the indications that Pierre has already been chosen. And so I'm not terribly worried. These people are a distraction. They're there just to tarnish the reputation of Pierre and I guess the people around him. I'm not sure. And so when it comes to the general election, they'll have all of this media of, oh, look at these other Conservative people who are, because he supported the trucker convoy. That's what they're going to try to do. And that's what Jean Charest is part of, because he's a liberal and he's a snake. And get rid of him. DQ him. He's not worth it. All he's going to do is destroy that party further.
All right. There you go. BJ Dichter's take on the CPC leadership race. Thank you, Benjamin. Appreciate it.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Benjamin Dichter. And that's it for this segment. Let's take a brief timeout, commercial break. Back with more on News Talk Saga 960 and the Mark Petronis Show after this.